Greetings and welcome back, everyone, to Into the Nexus, the podcast all about Heroes of the Storm. I'm Garrett Weinzierl, joined as always by Kyle Fergusson. And Kyle, we realized something last week. I realized this. We didn't even talk about possibly even mentioning this before the show. It's not in the notes. It's not anything. I'm springing on this on you right now because as we were winding down yesterday, we go off stream. When I say yesterday, last week. After last week's episode, after episode 322 of Into the Nexus, we're winding down. We're posting the show. And I'm thinking to myself, May's almost over. We're getting into the month of June. Kyle, I think we're coming up on our 10-year anniversary of podcasting. I think it was this is what was going through my mind, and I'm looking up. I'm like, yeah, when was it exactly? So I go and I dig up, folks. If you're listening and don't know where Kyle and I come from, we originally started podcasting together about StarCraft 2 with a show called StarCast, and that shitty blog spot that we ran that podcast off of is still up. You can still go to starcastshow.blogspot.com and see it. All the MP3 links are broken because they were on a GoDaddy server, and GoDaddy is garbage, and I no longer use them, and I haven't gone back to archive the show. But you can see when it was posted, and Kyle, we are way late celebrating our 10-year anniversary. Way freaking late. April 14th, 2010, StarCast, Episode 1, The Phantom Anus. We thought we were so funny. So edgy back in 2010.
So edgy.
Making butt jokes. Posted. Dude, we missed it. We have been podcasting for 10 years. A decade of our dumbasses talking to each other over Skype, over Zoom, over Google Hangouts, over anything that would work because none of it does. Happy 10 years, man.
Happy 10 years. We also missed by the same amount 6 years of ITN. That was on April 10th.
We like starting shows in April, apparently.
Apparently
April is our month. We need a
good month.
Next April, hopefully coronavirus will be over. We need to go on like an anniversary cruise together. Leave the wives at home and just sail off into the sunset. It's gonna be wonderful.
Yeah, live tour from the boat. I don't know about cruises, man. I don't know about cruises. I don't trust those things.
Listen. I'm looking forward to recovery as much as the next person. But yeah, I'm with you. And as someone who loves cruising and has been on many of them, I can think a few things that give me more heebie-jeebies right now at this exact moment in history of the world than being on a floating tube with thousands of other human beings.
With buffets and let's move on. Let's embrace the escapism that is Heroes of the Storm, because I played a heck of a lot this week. And as per usual, when I'm in a coordinated play environment, my Storm League is just awful. I am too cautious or perhaps too bold at all the wrong times, such as, what sort of monster on Rhaegar would say, don't fight when you're just a little bit away from level 20. You could have a 20 to 18 fight. So you're in the back, you're being like, nah, let's not. And they all do. And you lose that game. Those sort of things happen when you start playing with coordinated folk. And my Storm League suffered this week quite a bit for it.
Ooh, I'm sorry. So what, you brought in your coordinated lessons into Storm League?
Right, yeah, timings on merc camps and all this other things that when there are no timings in the world and there is no structure, it's completely random to people around you. Plus, I was playing on Monday, which I kind of forgot was a holiday because, whoops.
So, Kyle, I'd like to recommend a podcast to you. It's called Into the Nexus, and the two hosts on there spend a lot of time pointing out things that work in coordinated gameplay and that typically do not work in solo queuing or, do a low pre-made number environments. You should check it out.
Yeah. I know. That sounds like a good show. I might listen to it sometime.
5 stars.
I've been 5 stars on the iTunes store. I've been doing a lot of double soaking for my team in the CCL hosted by Heroes Hearth. And it's been fun. It's fun to be so busy. I've been doing it mainly on Leoric. I was practicing quite a bit of Malthael, who actually clicked this week for me. I was talking about him last week a little bit. In fact, studying Samuro play taught me how to play Malthael. And basically, in all my bruisers, and Yrel is such a bully, same with Leoric in a sense, I'm often charging in. Thrall, too, just charging in the front. And Malthael is not very good at that. He dies when he does such things. So from the Sammy players, I learned that I can kind of hide in the bush, particularly on mount with Pale Horse, and then rush in the back, and then use my Wraith Strike to go to the other side and, escape if I need to that way. And I just had a lot of success with Double Soak Malthael and Double Soak Leoric in these coordinated environments, and I tried to pull it off thinking, one guy, 2 lanes? Like, who can argue? They're going to have a great time. They're going to be levels up in the bottom lane. They're going to have a great time down there. But, they kept going to mid and soaking the lane that I was it all falls apart.
You do not have to explain to me the sadness of rocking like double solo lanes and it not working out.
You're going faster than your opponent. You're burning the XP into the wall because they can't catch up with you. Like it feels active. It feels good. It's less dually. It's a different environment. There's a lot of dueling in solo lane, which I have really become a huge part of. And in fact, I'm going to be playing in the Nexus Gaming series coming up. I'm going to be a solo laner for a team in there too. Like I have established myself as an aggressive solo laner capable of double soaking. And between those two activities, I've really found some joy in that style of play. But it does not work in Storm League. And in particular, I want to share with you a strategy that was presented to me by Moon. And again, I don't want to ruin his reputation, but really nice guy, and did some awesome coaching for us over the weekend. In fact, went through our 2 replays of the previous week's games and taught us why we didn't lose as bad as we felt we did. Like nothing but positive from that guy. It was an awesome experience, and I learned a lot. One thing he's extremely religious on is he went to Dota as well. So he's big on economy. And there's no reason to ever fight with a level down because, well, why would you when we could have all this beautiful economy? And when it comes to the middle fight, because our lanes meet in the middle first, because they all spawn at the same time at the core, and, top and bottom are longer distances, so those lanes come together later. The whole point of our middle fight originally, why anyone ever did it in HGC or any professional environment, was to clear the lane faster than your opponent. And if someone messed up or overstepped over there, maybe you get a kill. But the lane XP until level 5 is greater than a kill. So literally everybody with their abilities and whatnot just jumps on the lane, destroys it as fast as possible, and then rotates. And if you destroy it faster than your opponent, you are now rotating faster than them. And they're always playing catch up for the whole early game until the first objective where we kind of bail on that lane soaking for a time. What
that
we do
makes a lot of sense. Okay. Yeah. I had some counterpoints last week when you were getting in here with some of Mune's teaching. This one I can completely understand becoming a religious belief.
Yeah. And why wouldn't you? Because, of course, having a level lead means you're more powerful. And in things like Dota or League of Legends, it means you have more gold and stuff like that when you're soaking more efficiently. So I think that it's been a little doubled down by his other MOBA activities, but still very true here. Our big problem in Heroes of the Storm and solo queue play is that I think we kind of understand that concept. We all are in middle, and maybe we start to get that kill, or the enemy, we clear, but then the enemy team pushes forward. So we go, well, they want to fight. And you fight, and then the second wave appears. And you go, well, we got to clear this wave. After all, we got to clear the new wave that just showed up. We're not going to rotate with a wave here. So we end up fighting for 1 wave, 2 waves. Oh no, 3 waves. How long has this been going? And by that point, the solo laner has made a mistake by going to top lane and leaving the middle fight with a 4v5. So this got me really thinking this week. Like, how can we fix the game for people who are so macro-oriented? This is why they're insane. This is why they seem so angry. Because they are. Because this is a simple checks and balances, bank account sort of situation. And I think the answer is we need to make all waves meet at the same time. That's my anomaly. Let's change the game and get rid of something that we've just done forever. It doesn't make any sense. If we've had all the lanes meet together, we can have a clear understanding that XP is being lost across the map, and we can put an end to this ridiculous mid fight.
So you're saying on a 3-lane map, have the top and bottom minion waves spawn sooner than the middle minion wave.
Yeah, or I mean, it could even just be the very first wave if it gets complicated. They could spawn slightly out further for that very first wave since no one's in your base in the first place. I mean, waves after that, maybe that wouldn't matter as much, but let's find it. Maybe they just get like a speed boost for their first couple steps, you know, just to get going, even though they all spawn at the same time. Whatever's easier to program in that regard. You know, I'm thinking of like StarCraft editor where you sort of drag the spawn box out a little further.
So to make sure I'm following, you want to get rid of the beginning middle fight and not necessarily the multi-lane rotation that can and probably should exist on a lot of maps right now.
Yeah, I think it is a healthy strategy for a coordinated team to be able to rotate faster, have a draft advantage when they get a hold of heroes that have better lane clear where the enemy team now has better team fight or merc camp control or things like that. That's a play style choice if you want to play that game. And in fact, something that's really amazing that Moon does is he's on Genji and he harasses the team while they try to rotate. It looks like on paper, to the eyeballs in a casual environment, it looks like he's just farting off. What's he's randomly casting spells on the team as they try to rotate. He's dismounting them and causing them to rotate slower so we get an advantage. And that's a very cool play style. But in the end, the game's systems are encouraging us to fight in mid for too long. I want that to be something that's organic and understandable when a player sees these lanes come together. Why can't we be already in solo lane? Or put Rag in top and put Leoric in the bottom. Like let's embrace something a bit more split. Let 3 people battle out in the mid instead.
I think that's really interesting, man. I like that a lot. And again, we spent so much time last week talking about, the call for feedback, right? And we kept coming back around to like, well, is it easy to understand? Like, how far are we taking this? How complicated are we making certain things to try and fix a problem where there might be a simpler way to kind of approach it, right? And it's like, I don't know. I feel like saying all triple lane maps, the first wave of minions, all minions will meet at the same time. I think that's pretty easy to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
Even if after that, then they go back to kind of like staggered, where middle meets first and then top and bottom are a little further behind, because that also kind of helps establish a rotation if you're on a map, if you have a comp that can, do a proper rotation.
Not to say that it wouldn't cause additional issues if we didn't, continue that speed up. Like there may be a greater delay between wave 1 and wave 2 in the top lane. Therefore, you must rotate down to middle because you have time, or maybe that's a merc camp opportunity at 50 seconds. Usually not on most maps, but it could get weird in other ways. Gamers like to exploit things. That's why we can't have nice things sometimes, like, clear report features.
Right. Corning in the chat room brings up something interesting that says, what if camp spawns sooner? What if that was an anomaly? Would that encourage earlier splitting?
I was thinking about that too. My issue there is that I think the solo lane is fun, and getting to know your opponent is important information. If I'm going to take an extreme here, maybe not Corny's thought, but if the gate opens up and merc camp spawn, there becomes a very angry and zealot nature to how we split in the early game that isn't just XP, it's map advantage and other sorts of, merc related things. Right. I think that snowballs into a very angry place very quickly when you didn't draft a merc taker. It's taking 2 people to do that. Nobody does it. Oh my God, how could you guys? Lowlies getting mad at each other, sort of thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, and also like anecdotal thought, but in my experience, most players know that you need to go get to lane for XP. Is one of the most commonly pinged things so early in the game. Right? It's pretty rare outside of Dragonshire that I see people be like, mercs are up, go. Like that almost never happens. I almost never end up in a game where there is a feeling of universal understanding of when we should go and take merc camps on each battleground. But there does seem to be, to me, in my experience, a universal understanding that you need to go soak those waves. And so if they're meeting earlier, that I would think would spur a much like quicker dispersal of the mid fight.
Yeah. I
like
think it works towards the system we're looking for, which is something that is naturally informing what you should be doing. Whereas right now it's a choice. And I do feel like Blizzard in general makes games where there are a lot of choices. There's a lot of bad choices. And I think of World of Warcraft too when I think of this. Like there's a lot of opportunity to be wrong in modern gaming. And I think Blizzard enjoys giving those opportunities for uniqueness, but it's often at the detriment to, completing the raid correctly.
I mean, I think at a certain point, you're basically generally describing it's difficult to balance asymmetrical games.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Like, I don't know how much, but, and to get to like, and that guy, hell, I could tie that back into the very long conversation we had via the final email from last week's episode talking about the pitfalls and dangers of reworks for people that like the heroes the way they are. Like, you're never going to win, I guess is my point. So you can just, I don't know. I don't know how deep down that tunnel I want to go because it seems pretty wide reaching.
Well, you were mentioning to me that you're over Tracer. You're not a fan.
Yeah, well, there's layers to that, right, man? Like, so yeah, I've been spending some time soul searching in Heroes of the Storm. By soul searching, I mean hero searching. I'm all over the place, man. I'm kind of spiraling, trying to find new heroes. I'm a little like Rexar's working. I'm just kind of bored. I feel like I've played enough Rexar games. So I'm trying to find other places to put my time, to have some fun. So taking a look at like what's doing well. Li Ming's starting to fall off, but she still works. People still know how to draft around her, and I've always liked Li Ming, so I'm playing some more Li Ming again. Orphea is doing great and has been for a while, so I've been getting back on Orphea. Love me some Orphea, dude. I'm so glad you and Lashes were like, why aren't you playing Orphea? Go play Orphea. You're gonna love Orphea because you're
I'm
right.
Glad.
You're right. I do. And then I went over to Tracer. I thought to myself, I should probably learn this hero. It seems broken. Seems like, if no one wants to step up to the plate on a potential first pick, maybe Tracer's a good hero to have in my back pocket. And I don't like playing her, man. It's weird. I think I'm finding like I'm kind of a snowflake when it comes to my hero picks and Heroes of the Storm, man. I kind of want. And I know this is funny because I think it was just like 2 weeks ago that I was like, there's a certain amount of clunk where it's gone too far and I just can't get into it, right? I think there's a happy medium. I think I need a certain amount of clunk. I think moving, for me, Tracer, like being able to move while attack, like there's something that just inherently feels wrong to me. It feels like it doesn't belong in Heroes of the Storm. It feels like I'm cheating, but I'm bored while I'm cheating. Tracer feels really boring to me. I don't like playing her. Like, it's like and it's weird, and I've been trying to figure out why. Like, what is it? And this is a very personal journey, everybody. I'm not about to hit you with any like you shouldn't play Tracer for whatever reason. That's none of this. This is me just going like, I think I've been playing this game since the tech alpha, and that like there's a reason like I play the certain heroes that I play. Like, because to me, they feel like the way that Heroes of the Storm makes sense in my mind, and like going as far back as the tech alpha of how heroes should control, and Tracer just isn't it, man. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, I can move while I attack, but like I'm hitting for beans, like it's tiny little hits, and if there's not a good setup, like if they're just deathballing, which frankly I'm trying to learn Tracer in quick match, everybody be deathballing. It's just like, what am I doing? What am I doing here? I'm hoping for like someone to break from the herd. I'm a lion looking for the sickly gazelle, and they're just hugging butts everywhere they go. So it's so tedious to play Tracer. I don't find joy in it.
Well, you don't need to think of yourself as a proud lion. That's a team activity. You need to think of yourself as the crocodile in the Nile. There's herds of animals coming by, but it's the one that makes the mistake that you're going to jump on.
I mean, we're semantics at this point, but yeah.
No. One is a proud lion hunting a poor sickly creature. The other is an ambush predator that is basically a dinosaur taking down anything at once because it misstepped. You gotta find, you gotta twist that to find pride. You think that's kind of, I think in the end, sort of my struggle with Malthael here. I want to be a proud bruiser, walk in the front, huzzah, Yrel wing, and like, oh, you can't kill me, I'm amazing. Malthael is like like, look out, Garrosh has like half health, look out. It's stupid. It's kind of ridiculous.
That I love you. That may have been, and this is all love, that may have been one of the most ineloquent explanations you've ever made on the show. I love it.
That's how I feel. Like he's this, no one can stop death. Like the theming doesn't match the play style, but that's what I'm finding success with.
It's interesting because I like Malthael and his like Malthael's stickiness and commitment, like that clicks for me. Whereas Tracer's like, oh well, they got away and I can't go any deep. Like, I don't know, man. It's just, there's something about Tracer that just feels inherently tedious to me.
No, I mean, it's a very long time that it takes to complete what you're doing. And it definitely benefits a lot from game knowledge. Like anecdotally, I find that people who are really good tanks are really good tracers because they understand a lot of cooldowns and when they can create body blocks, and that sort of stuff just doesn't feel very tracery. Like, I'm the sweet pick kill assassin. Let me get a body block.
I guess
weird.
I guess that's fair. But body blocking on Malthael makes sense because he literally has an ability to just like is insta body block. Right.
Yeah, well, it's extra cute because nothing personal kid teleports behind you, so it's the perfect character for that.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so glad you need nothing personal kidded Malthael. That's great. Like you get that. Dude, why don't you like Malthael more? If you understand that, you should be all about Malthael.
I think they should make a skin where his trench coat is even more trench coaty, and he's got sunglasses on.
And he like a single finger pushes it up.
Oh, yeah, every time you cast Last Rites, that's what he does.
And then there's a perfect glare on the glasses every time. Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, it'd be wonderful. Exactly. So really, I guess, no offense to you, dude, but you're not selling Tracer very well. And I'd like to put the call out to our community. Like, tweet at us, at Garrett Art, at ITNcast. I want to have Tracers. Like, how do I buy in to the job that Tracer has to perform? Because she is overtuned. She's probably going to get nerfed. But for some reason, it's like not enough for me. I'm just like, this isn't doing it. So sell me, everybody. I need you to be a car salesman for Tracer.
I think it's also fair that you don't want to invest in something that's going to get nerfed.
Oh, well, that's not at all it. Really,
okay.
This is like a personal, like, I feel like I should like this. It's a weird thing for me because I did play quite a bit of her when she first released. I was just so impressed that they made Tracer work. They brought it from Overwatch over into Heroes of the Storm. Can't even remember the last time I played Overwatch. It's been a while, but when I was playing it, I really liked playing Tracer, and I felt that they, converted that over to Heroes of the Storm really well. And now it's been so long since I've even touched the hero in this game that I've gone back and I'm like, oh, this just feels inherently wrong. It's just something about it. I'm like, no, I want a stutter step, Kyle, I guess is what this really comes down to.
That's fair. Strong positioning and all that. And you need to, she's one of the few that can dive towers right now, which I think is where a lot of her power is coming from.
Yeah. And I'm just finding my joy never needing to be in range of the tower on Li Ming. Yeah, I had a Li Ming game this week, man. I just felt like a God, it was amazing. I had Diablo, who was like legitimately aggressive, but knew when to be aggressive. And you know that feeling, man. You know that feeling when you learn the body language of the stranger you're playing Heroes of the Storm with, and you know exactly when it's time to follow up whatever random BS they're pulling. And I just got into step with this Diablo, and it was wonderful. Every one of my arcane missiles hit. The orb was always set up like there goes the Diablo, off goes my orb. throw off a magic missile, calamity in. Oh, it's wonderful. It's so great.
It's the joy of solo queue that I think it gets lost along the way.
It's a feature, not a hindrance, right?
Yeah.
It's where you may see a pitfall of pickup games being, I can't coordinate perfectly. I can't take what I do with my friends in a coordinated environment and apply that to a pickup game. We say, no, you get to learn the habits of 4 other players on your team, and technically 5 against, but that's always the case even in pickup games, right? There's something fun about that. And it's
the mystery, the puzzle.
Yeah,
the puzzle.
I think it's a really positive way to look at the game, and something I've always really respected about you, because I learned it from you. I learned it from watching you, Kyle.
Well, sadly, we did not learn what's going to be updated in our game this week.
No, we haven't. No, there is no balance patch this week. Well, maybe.
No.
We're recording this on Thursday. Maybe it wouldn't be the first time we got like a late Friday patch, but. What do you think, man? You think they're just sitting there going over all that feedback that they got when they asked for it, and they're going, I think we can make some of these changes in with our Cassia and Tracer pass?
That's my thought. I think they are delaying their update because, Tracer's win rate may very well be based on her ability to dive towers and get kills in there. Cassia, maybe not necessarily, but she's got a lot of random bolts flying around. This analogy or thought anyway falls apart when we think about Tassadar, whose level 1 auto attack is always making buildings mad, but nobody cares because the win rate's fine. In fact, it's W build and it's fine. Just a side note. Tassadar's found his own out there. I think that they are waiting maybe till next week. Maybe we'll even sit on this patch longer as they digest everything the community had to say, which wasn't very unanimous. Which is to be expected with Reddit and all. I think everybody, if we found the biggest number, it was that people don't like the armor. They think the targeting is fine, but we should consider objectives and bosses. But bold statements all around. But I think everyone found it pretty agreeable.
Yeah. I kept checking in on it, and I didn't walk away with anything in the form of a consensus. It felt pretty all over the place. Obviously, people have strong opinions, but again, it's like 10 minutes ago, I was like, oh yeah, this one thing is probably too wide ranging. We're kind of talking generically here about game balance, and now we're just talking generically about people. Like, hey, one person has a different opinion from another. We really cracked the nut on this one, Kyle.
Blew it out of the water, man. Like, get the BuzzFeed articles ready. I think too that there is a additional layer sitting on top of this, and that's what we're going to talk about in strategy today. Is that the call for tank balance has reached a bit of a fever pitch, and I wouldn't be surprised if they want more than just Tracer and Cassia to show.
Yeah. Well, before we move into that, 2 things. One, what do you think is the most likely to happen change to the anomaly?
If I'm thinking about number adjustments, the quickest thing to do is probably remove the armor thing. It stacks. I don't know how complicated that is in the editor kind of business, but that would be the fastest way to get people what they want. Targeting objectives is probably on the A tier in comparison to people's requests.
I mean, it was literally the first proposed change in their post.
Yeah.
When they did pros and cons, because they suggested 3 things. The very first one was, quote, change all structures to prioritize map objectives before anything else.
Yeah.
And then then they were also talking about changing tower aggro, and then also lowering the damage that structures do to heroes. But you and I were not particularly hot on the other 2 to like, and just like our own community, I feel like people in the chat room last week, folks talking in the Discord, tweets that we're seeing, the prioritizing map objectives seems to be something like it is close to in agreement we can find in the community. And And I'm with you. I think adjusting the armor debuff, either removing it entirely or severely reducing it, seems likely. I'd be surprised if that's what they do next, though, because it wasn't something that they put forward in their own post. So I'm looking at I'm putting a lot of weight on those because they were the ones that suggested it.
I think they do the targeting first and let that fly, but that could be a lengthier update than changing the armor values. It does feel weird to overstep and receive a debuff that affects you for so long. It could be that it only affects you for a shorter amount of time. That could help us out here. It's so weird for me to be discussing this aspect of play when I'm so ingrained in coordinated play right now, where things like macro are of greater importance than you overstepped and you made a mistake, you should be punished for it. The tower changes are fine in that regard.
Yeah. It's interesting, but I guess we'll see. It'll be very interesting if there's no chance of the anomaly and it's just the Tracer Cassia pass, but
I don't think people would be irate. I don't think it would be a disappointment. The issue is that our tanks are in a weird spot. And if we don't adjust our tanks for this anomaly, we will continue in a rather stale environment.
Well, that's a great place to move on. But I did say I had two things. Number two is thanking our patrons for supporting us before we get into our discussion of tanks.
Nice.
So, folks, thank you for supporting us. If you want to support the show, check it out over at patreon.com/ITN, because this episode and every single episode of Into the Nexus is brought to you by our lovely patrons who are giving their own actual money to support the show. It's an opt-in subscription. If you've never looked at Patreon before, that's what it is. And if you can't give, rad, no problem. Show's always going to be free for you. But if you'd like to support the show, you want to get some perks like an ad-free feed, access to the Discord, signing up for monthly patron nights, like tonight, as a matter of fact, Kyle, you and I are going to get together and play some games of Heroes of the Storm with our patrons and our patron bonanza. Go check it out. Patreon.com/ITN. And to our most recent patrons, thank you to Juan Carlos Guevara and Owen Neely. Thank you very much, you two. We appreciate the support. Thanks for helping keep the lights on. And now, Kyle, let's move into this week's strategies / it's really we're gonna think tank a little bit here. That's what we're gonna do.
Yeah. Ooh, think tank.
Choose a talent.
Talent? Ah, that seems generous.
I have a PhD in PvP.
No, you don't, Nazebo. You have a PhD in laning.
They never put PvP in Diablo. Poor Nazebo.
That's why he's such a boring hero, because he just lanes, because that's all he knows how to do. All he knows how to do is grind in Diablo.
Oh, poor Nazebo. I love that guy. He's my favorite Diablo 3 class, hands down.
I've done an about face on that hero entirely. All right, man. State of tanks. Let's talk about it. This is a really popular post on the subreddit this week of your Redditor Frozen Death Knight with some underscores in there. This Redditor is unhappy with the state of tanks and puts it very bluntly.
So what happened is people are trying to summon the patch notes. They're saying summon tank changes. Some think that the tanks are fine, and some very much disagree. But altogether, consensus, ETC, Johanna are dominating. If they don't receive bans, it is the fault of the drafters to not early pick them. And that leads to a stale environment. So he commented in there and then made his own post that went on to be top of Reddit.
Yes, indeed. And like, if you were to sum this up, I don't know. Would it be fair to say that this kind of boils down to ETC and Johanna are kind of it? Garrosh is arguably meta, and every other tank is kind of old, moldy, and can't do what Johanna, ETC, and Garrosh can do.
We can't go that far so quick because, of course, we have to say that Garrosh has Indomitable, and that's what allows him to do what Johanna does, in a sense, being unstoppable for a time. Mm-hmm. And ETC's tank pressure, by nature of such extreme CCs, gives him a unstoppable in his own way. It's always an interesting thing. We don't want to put CCs into a tank because they're the tank. They want to absorb damage and CCs. Problem is, we have 2-3 tanks that actually obey those rules, and the rest can be CC'd and destroyed during that time. So, in a pure thought philosophy on tanks, it seems that many of our tanks aren't working correctly. And I think this is a really interesting thought. It's fascinating to think of ETC with armor as well during his spellcasts as absorbing so much CC that he's basically unstoppable, if you will.
Okay. So I guess to go back to the post, to try not to move through it too quickly, there is a glaring omission. There's a tank that isn't called out specifically.
Mal'Ganis here.
Yeah. So, because you like Mal'Ganis. I'm seeing a lot of Mal'Ganis in the CCL. I see a lot of Mal'Ganis in my own games at home.
Mal'Ganis is an interesting one because he can spam so much. His ability to hit so many heroes, to stun so many heroes at a time, to sleep them and disrupt a whole team over and over again is very high. So when you counterplay him, he has other options. I mean, Johanna, in this instance, you have your condemn, you have your punish. If you don't get your condemn, you usually can't punish. If you don't, I fear making any sort of face melt analogy because that's such a hot topic. Moon loves face melt. Many people don't. If you fail your power slide, you can't face melt. Not true, but go with me on this.
Okay.
And I'm talking about Pinball Wizard there as the town that gets argued over so much. And I don't want to invoke. Mal'Ganis, if you interrupt claws, they're still sleep. And both can work without the other. So his amount of disruption that he brings to the field is very high. I think that ETC, and particularly Johanna, with the amount of safety she brings, we're looking at a popularity of Johanna in 72% of games. That's amazing. ETC is at 53. I think there's a lot of very, 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 very powerful ETCs in the world. When I see a Smurf tank, it is an ETC. When I see freaky people who are monsters and have a higher chance to stream snipe, they're Garrosh.
Oh,
because they get high on their own supply. There's an octaneness to it. But playing Garrosh, and they taunt and they spray and they B-step, like Garrosh is a personality. So I think his popularity will always be lower just because he's a bully.
Oh, Garrosh is such a Chad.
Yeah, very much so. Like, oh, let me make a structured engage. Let me stun the back line. And no, I'm going to grab whatever the hell I want. I'm going to toss it and stun it, and my team better be able to kill it. And I will ignore... yeah, right. We're looking at a 47% win rate, and I'll ignore 53% of the games I lose because the games I win are so fulfilling to my freaky Garrosh nonsense that I think the same thing is about people who just spam Diablo, right?
Yeah. So we're getting away. We're getting away.
Okay, yes, I'm distracted.
For the sake of let's try and bring this under our own roof and try and find general statements we're comfortable having a conversation around. Do you think it's safe to say that Johanna, ETC, and then just outside of that, Garrosh and Mal'Ganis are kind of the only acceptable tanks right now?
Right. So what we have to do here is say that ETC and Mal'Ganis, because of their disruptive capabilities and multiple abilities that can do that amount of CC, have a sort of light unstoppable because they must be CC'd. In a sense, and they still can recover after that. The pressure Mosh Pit puts on a game to absorb CCs means that Maev and whoever else is running wild because they're not receiving CCs. So that design is really interesting. The fact that Mal'Ganis is first pick is frankly bizarre, but Mal'Ganis takes very, very particular counterplay, not just in hero picks like Lucio and ETC and other interrupts, maybe even Raynor if you hit him close enough that he's actually slowed to that degree. That counterplay isn't obvious with a counter pick. We're not just giant killering big heroes here. So I think those two are safe by very interesting notes. I would even say Diablo because his snap engage and the prolongedness of that engage with maybe 50 armor at 4, maybe healing off his own stuns. That's an interesting case, and he's okay. But are there other heroes that we can apply Unstoppable to, or a greater nature of CC pressure to elevate them? Outside of just, and AZ Jackson said this, he could make every hero in the game 50% win rate if he wanted by adjusting damage and health. But that'd be boring.
Right. But I think what you and I are more interested in is making the draft more interesting. We're not interested in 50%. Right. I'm not. It's the joy of asymmetry, right? But like, so ETC and Alganis, like, I'm really glad that you deconstructed them in the way that you did, which is like, they don't have Unstoppable, but they bring so much else to the table and in their recovery options that they don't necessarily need it. And that's a really interesting design, right? Because and that's kind of they should be our examples. Johanna is the goal, right? Is to like just be that ubiquitous. But we don't want to be so boring as to just slap Unstoppable on all of our other tanks, right? How do you do that? Well, here's ETC, here's Mal'Ganis. Here are two examples of tanks that do not have Unstoppable and yet bring enough to the table. And so it's really interesting. I don't know. I find that interesting. I think you could also probably throw Unstoppable on a couple other tanks, but we need to, I think, find more interesting ways to go about that.
It's fascinating that since the Diablo rework, Lightning Breath, which is Unstoppable, has gone from an unstoppable tool to a spell damage tool based on a Flame Stomp build and, empowering your spell power into reducing enemy damage and then, of course, slowing them with that breath. We no longer think of that as an unstoppable ability. We think of it as a damage ability, but it's still applying that pressure. So our Redditor here, who, of course, this is not an official post. We're not going to go point by point, and I certainly don't want to argue with them because this is their own personal opinions. Even Caterpillar, our old HGC pro, jumped in and said, I think tanks are very healthy right now. There's lots of diverse picks. Brings up the fact that Arthas should have baseline Icebound Fortitude to give him what Johanna and Garrosh have. And I think that's very interesting as the, if not flanking, which is the stronger play style in my opinion, the marching forward, no one stops death kind of Arthas that plays into the fantasy they built.
Yeah, I don't agree with a lot of this post, but I like that one. That sounds sexy. I'm into it.
And I mean, Icebound Fortitude is a lower win rate right now. It is not the most popular, but you'll hear very religious statements about its need to be picked depending on who you talk to. Icebound Fortitude, if you're not familiar, activate to gain 25 armor, reducing damage by 25%, and reduce the duration of stun slows and roots against Arthas by 75% for 3 seconds. So this can allow you, if you're approaching from the front in particular, to make the engage you were hoping to engage on in the first place. It's interesting that Garrosh, because of his pick potential, has really embraced this mount style of play where you are always mounted, always running out of a bush for a quick pick. If they interrupt you, you pop Unstoppable to continue that walk towards them.
The Kyle Fergusson tactic.
Is that my tactic?
I call it Kyle's favorite.
I hate it. You're trolling me.
Yes,
Okay.
I am.
I'm so glad that Alarax kind of got over that for a little bit because, oh man, it's just mounted, man. It looks silly. It looks great on Diablo, but I'm biased. I think Diablo looks great. Did never put him on an actual mount, crawling on all fours. That's a play style. Garrosh and Alarak are broken and need fixing. Not by balance, just by players. Icebound Fortitude baseline could be really interesting and could free up some level 7 talent picks and maybe introduce another play style. Can we give Garrosh Unstoppable, Indomitable for him at level 1? It's a level 4 talent. He's not actually going that long. It's a 78% pick rate on Indomitable for Garrosh.
Yeah, that is traditionally when we start to see the devs take notice and start trying to think of ways to just, whether we want to early or not, just find ways to promote talent diversity, right?
Yeah.
And that being so ubiquitous, because it's level 4. That's really early, right? Hell, beginning of the show, talked about how you should just be laning until level 5 because a wave lane is worth more than a kill, right? So
great tie-in. I didn't think of that. Great tie-in.
Right. So level 4, I think, is perfectly fine. It's just that, like, do we want a talent to be that required? Do we want level 4 to just be a non-issue? Speaking generally, of course.
Yeah, I mean, in for the kill, thirst for battle. That they're not. Garrosh's auto attack damage is actually pretty decent when you look at a graph, but. Basic attacks against heroes, it's not really what he does. He doesn't hang out for extended time trying to get his heal back. And if you've ever switched from Garrosh to Stitches, Garrosh's heal just feels awful. I think that's really interesting comment to make, because I'm not sure we need to bake into the fray. I would rather not fight level 1 Garrosh in a 4-man lane with Into the Fray active. But it would clean up the popularity at 83%. That's the ability, of course, where Garrosh throws an ally.
Right. It's just it's interesting. There's so many angles. Like, there's so many potential ways this could go. And it's like, I like that we haven't talked about just nerfing the successful tanks, because it's not really what I want to see.
You do not want to make tanks not want to play tanks. That is not a possibility here, because you're lucky if you get a good tank. And tanks already can feel like if they have to have the greatest knowledge. Their burden of knowledge is huge to play that class. And if they don't want to do it and they feel like they're having less fun, but we also have a balancing act where we can't let them become so powerful that they get rid of bruisers, which is interesting with this popularity of solo lane Stitches right now. Arthas solo lane. Like, if we take their power and just say, well, tanks now deal more damage, tanks should have more fun, pick a tank for your team, please. We just end up with double tank and no bruisers.
Right. So I think everything we've kind of focused on now is, to me, it seems like the right direction. Because if we start looking at other avenues like damage and whatnot, you're right. They're going to start encroaching on other roles, which brings in its own can of worms, right? Like, then what do we do? What do we do to make bruisers interesting to pick at all? And does that start to lean like, oh, well, just make them tanks? And it's like, where do we draw the line?
Right, and we can't really draw the line at. We have to draw the line at damage, because if we draw the line at lane clear, then that puzzle is very fascinating. Could we get rid of Johanna's lane clear?
I really like that lane clear is sprinkled throughout basically every role in this game. Whatever role you're looking at, there's some heroes that are good at it. There's some heroes that bring basically none of it to the table, and I think that's really interesting. That's not something I want to start locking into a specific role. That doesn't pique my interest.
Well, let's continue this experiment through our various tanks and live chat here. Join us for this. Blaze is a fascinating one because he has some very obvious counterplay in the way that he uses his jet propulsion. If you body block him, he can't get out. His engage is escape. His escape is engage. Can we take something like New Habits, his level 1 talent that allows him to have unstoppable for 2 seconds during Pyromania, and make that baseline? So at the very least, while a escape is an engage and engage is an escape, he can't be picked up by Diablo or Garrosh and put in a body block that stops his escape.
So when you say make a baseline, start with a quest?
Start with a quest, or we give him unstoppable on Pyromania.
Yeah. Again, like, would it be that bad to have unstoppable right at the beginning?
I don't think so. But
kind of where I'm leaning too.
I think the issue, if we thought about this in a game design way, is that then you get into heavy combustion play, because combustion, if interrupted, does less stuff, because you channel for up to 2.6 seconds. If you had a 2-second unstoppable, you're guaranteeing a huge amount of that combustion building. You slow nearby enemies by 60% and deal damage to them. Combustion, slow, and damage over time duration extend the longer blaze channeled.
So why would making what's it called, new habits baseline increase combustion any more than it is already?
I mean, we're already looking at a 65% popularity heroic, but you give him unstoppable and we're guaranteeing a base amount of combustion. And if he can escape more reliably, move more reliably, bunker feels weird in solo queue.
How much talent diversity do we really have on heroics on our most popular tanks right now?
Well, that's a great question. Let's take a look at ETC and Johanna.
I just like, you're bringing me into, all right, well, let's have a reality check.
Yeah. ETC, we're looking at 86% popularity on Mosh Pit. And for Johanna, we're looking at a 87% popularity on Blessed Shield.
So
you've countered my point perfectly.
Yeah. Well, I'm not necessarily saying that it's right, but I don't see it as a major problem, because extremely popular talents are always going to be a thing.
On a personal level, I think it would be very healthy for Blaze to enjoy all these wonderful stim pack things he has, because the theming's great. And I think having stim pack on a hero, since we removed it from Raynor back in the day, wasn't that a stim pack? I think Tychus also had a stim pack or something.
We removed stim packs from the entire game of Heroes of the Storm. We used to be able to stim our account.
Oh. all right, Mr. Beta, Mr. Alpha over here.
Mr. Pre 2.0, and I actually bought things.
Well, yeah. Anyway, it sounds like new habits at a 51% popularity is already so popular. Maybe we consider that. Let's talk about a really polarizing here one, Muradin, and the old unstoppable that was removed from Dwarf Toss.
Yeah. Do you want to go back to the Muradin days? Because this is one here tank. I think I'm happy with where he is.
I don't, because now we've made a better Malthael or Yrel, or down the line, like we've just made a better backline bruiser by making unstoppable Muradin. However, if we were all good nice gamers to each other, this feels like a thing that a tank should have. Problem is, we exploited it, and so we had to punish the whole class.
Right, and there's still like those specialist Muradins out there, right, man? Like they just come in, and you're like, oh, it's one of those Muradins that just sets up the most beautiful, perfect, aggressive kills. Muradin's dangerous, and I don't want to go back to the old ways of Muradin having unstoppable on Dwarf Toss.
So here's perhaps our first hero that we don't want to give unstoppable to. Arthas, we're being rather coy and giving him Icebound Fortitude, but we're very familiar, and that's got additional bonuses to it as well with the armor he's receiving.
And it's not like I would imagine. We're trying to have a conversation here, so we're keeping things relatively general. But I wouldn't imagine that a lot of these potential bacons that we are suggesting would end up 1-to-1, right? Like you'd probably tweak the cooldown on Icebound Fortitude, maybe the duration. Like there's a lot of things there to mess with.
Yeah, there's lots of knobs.
Mm-hmm.
What if we gave Muradin the Mal'Ganis treatment and allowed each of his abilities to be more impactful? So CCing Muradin out of a certain ability, like Dwarf Toss, which only slows for... Wait, hang on. Upon leaping, you gain... Doesn't slow at all. There's no slow associated with Dwarf Toss. I mean, yeah, you're going to jump in there and maybe Thunderclap, but that's a 25% slow. That's really, really tame. It also reduces attack speed because we baked in that a long time ago. But what if we gave him the Mal'Ganis treatment in this way and we let Dwarf Toss have, as part of it, a slow associated with the landing? That's a level 7 talent. Heavy impact, slowed by 80% for 1.25 seconds.
So bacon, but not at all in the style of other bacons that we've been discussing here, right? Because we're looking at Blaze and Arthas. It basically like Arthas is like not quite an unstoppable, but damn near, and Blaze's is. So yeah, the Mal'Ganis, the ETC treatment. I like that.
Exactly. That is a very unpopular talent at 16% compared to things like Give 'em the Axe and Skullcracker. We'll just leave it at that. I'll call it that from now on. It's a level 7 talent, so it doesn't quite meet our rules of this coming online before hero kills are worth more than lanes. But that is a possibility, and I think a healthier one.
It's also a talent no one's taking.
Yes, exactly.
So it'd be interesting for sure. I mean, it would help set up a lot more stuns, because if you land, you got to slow, easier to line up your shot. Yeah. You know who we haven't talked about is a Nubarak.
And I want to, before we move on to a Nubarak, I want to mention one more point there too, is that if we include the slow on the dwarf toss, we no longer have to thunderclap that target, which is rather silly when we think about it. We leap onto, let's say, Raynor, like right over the front line, leaving our poor back line to themselves. We land on Raynor, we thundercrack him to slow him because we need that to aim our Stormbolt better, let's say, and then he's stunned. Wouldn't it be much more tanky and more beautiful of a thing if Thunderclap, which reduces attack speed, was left there on the ground where you were to help out your back line while you made a backline engage with your Dwarf Toss and your Stormbolt? That sounds pretty nice.
Yeah, it does. It does. Okay. All right, Kyle Fergusson, you have not scared me away from improving Mirrodin.
Okay. In the Mal'Ganis sort of style.
Yes.
You want to move on to a Nubarak, though.
Yeah, but literally just popped in my head. I wasn't even sure we were going to get around to it today, but then it hit me. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even think about it. I didn't even think about a Nubarak. And I'm going to immediately tie this back into the end of show conversation we had last week, based on that email about the scariness of reworks if you like a hero the way they are. So, a Nubarak. Definitely not a meta tank. I think it's like I don't think I'm going out on a limb and saying when I say that a Nubarak not considered a meta tank right now.
Still considered a good tank by people who are very aggressive.
Yes. I love a Nubarak. I love him a lot. And
he's the ice bro, man.
We've talked a lot about a Nubarak and the fact that one of our other favorite phrases here, Kyle, a Nubarak just dies.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? There's great counter a Nubarak, just killing a Nubarak. You can just kill a Nubarak in a lot of scenarios. But a Nubarak also inhabits this really unique realm where he is kind of a rock, paper, scissors counter to too much spell damage if overdrafted by your opposing team. And then you're just like, all right, it's a Nubarak time. Now, if our goal was to make a Nubarak a more ubiquitous tank, we'd probably have to start moving away from that. It's been mentioned a couple times in chat room, I don't know by whom, making his W just give armor, not specifically spell armor.
I don't think so when we're talking about the post here, and we're mainly talking about the only way to make tanks on par with, Johanna is to give them unstoppable. I don't think we need to return to a Nubarak world where he's escaping from roots and, out of those CCs that were causing him to not go underground and run away.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I moved past a point that tied it better into this conversation, which is I think he already kind of has the ETC Mal'Ganis package.
Exactly.
He stuns a lot. A Nubarak brings a lot of stuns. His issue is he just tends to die. So he either shines where he is hard countering overdrafted spell damage, or you just drafted the most aggressive dive comp in the history of a hero's draft. That's also where Nubarak can shine.
Yeah.
And those are some of the most fun games I honestly play in here. My favorite games in Heroes of the Storm are Nubarak when I'm not countering spell damage. It's because our entire team is just dive murder death.
We got Gray Mane and all sorts of wild stuff going on.
Kerrigan.
We got Rhaegar. Like, everybody wants to bite one butt.
Yes. In fact, I'm going to call it, right now I'm coining it, my favorite comp in this world is playing an Uberak on the dive, murder, death comp.
Yes, dive, murder, death. That's slightly less than kill, murder, death. But yes.
I love it. It's so much fun. And I guess what I'm saying, Kyle, is I'm afraid to lose that. I'm afraid to lose the rare occasions where an Uberak is perfect. There's a purity to that hero that I love.
I think that's very quaint of you. But we just had an excellent example of this happen in a rework, and it's Cassia. Cassia had a perfect world counter place, and I played her occasionally because of it. But her new rework, once balanced, is feeling very successful and more universal. So I think I can get on this train where we say Nerubian armor is all armor. Maybe we don't give him level 1 possibility to increase that armor. We got to change his health, and I don't know if I want to hit that sore spot again, really dig in that wound of changing his health again. But we give him armor, things need to change. We could also go about it with things like Subterranean Shield, which is a very popular level 7 pickup where you get a shield when you burrow charge. We could make him more shield oriented and less so about armor.
Okay, yeah, because let's be fair, if the goal is to make him more ubiquitous, we just need to give him more survivability. It needs to take longer to kill an Uberak.
It's tough to be coy about armor when Mal'Ganis is sitting there with a 50 armor pop at level 4.
Yes.
Like, we better not give an Uberak 25 armor. It'd be dangerous.
And as hesitant as I am to move away from an Uberak being a very tightly aimed weapon at very specific scenarios, I mean, we used to live in a world where an Uberak was a ubiquitous tank. Like when he first hit, it was just an Uberak all the time. It didn't matter. You weren't just countering spell damage, right? He was too overtuned, but again, it's like I guess. You ready for a car analogy?
Okay.
There's certain cars in this world where it's like it's all about the purity, you know. No one. If you go up, Kyle, you buy a Porsche and you complain that it's not comfortable enough over bumps. Why are you buying a Porsche? But would I complain about a world where I get to take my Porsche out more often? So let me bring this back. Sorry, I'll bring it home for you.
Okay, yeah, bring it home.
I'll bring it home for you.
Okay.
An Uberak, it's a little bumpy. Maybe it would be better if he was a little more comfortable, right? But maybe I'm afraid of losing the purity of the experience of taking an Uberak out. Like playing an Uberak, it feels like nothing else when it's right. When it's right to take an Uberak and it works. There's really nothing else in Heroes of the Storm that feels that way for me. And maybe I shouldn't be as afraid of him changing if I get to have that experience more often.
I've got an analogy for you. World of Warcraft analogy.
Clearly, I failed.
It's like that Locke who, throughout all the trash, is bragging about his sweet numbers, constantly posting damage, but always almost dead because he's like hellfiring and stuff like that. And then we get to a boss and he has no single target damage, and he just becomes a grump. We're like, well, of course you're fully spec'd into all this AoE stuff. Of course you're not going to be great on the boss. Like that's what playing an Uberak feels like to me. You got great numbers when the situation is perfect, but if it's not, it's a burden to the team.
Fair.
Unnecessary.
So I guess it really, as an Uberak fan, as someone who's very passionate about that hero, I think the thing I would be the most afraid of losing is his batshit insane chain stuns that he can pull off.
I don't think we have to get rid of that when we use the Mal'Ganis treatment.
Okay,
I mean, look at
right,
ETC.
and that's where we're teeing him up under, right? That the spotlight we're putting him under is the spotlight of ETC and Mal'Ganis. These tanks that bring enough control and disruption in their kit that they don't need just a I hit button to go unstoppable. They don't need that. They make up for it in other ways. And I think an Uberak has enough of that, just not enough health. he doesn't have enough time spent alive to get enough value out of what his kit is.
Quality of life, though, I would love to see auto attack tracing, not a name, but let's call it that, removed from his burrow.
Auto attack. So you want an auto attack to disconnect when he burrows?
Right. Like Blink works this way. Laming teleport works this way. We have a lot of like dodging pyroblast, no less, in some of these situations. I think it's perfectly okay to say a Nubrak doesn't exist for a hot moment when he dives, so that a Vala arrow doesn't whoop through the air after him.
I mean, that would
give him a huge amount of survivability.
Huge, yeah, man. Because like, how many? You've all done it. Have you played a Nubrak? You've been in the scenario. You dive in. You dive in with burrow charge. You get all your stuns off. You have a beautiful team fight. You're about to die. Just as burrow charges back up, you burrow out, and it doesn't matter. The Vala arrow just becomes self-propelled and follows you to your doom.
Right.
I'm very interested in that change. Once again,
if this
Kyle,
was a Reddit post,
Kyle, you would be an amazing salesman.
Yeah, I can only sell things I believe in is my problem.
Somebody get this man a plaid jacket.
I believe in Heroes of the Storm, and I can sell that.
Fair. Well,
ask me to sell BOGO items in the checkout lane. I'm going to have a real hard time.
Well, it depends. Depends, dude. Is it Publix chocolate chip cookies? Because I believe in those, and they are BOGO sometimes.
Yeah, I believe in some candy. I do believe in candy from time to time, but I don't believe in like bookmarks or, mints.
Bookmarks. You can tell that you used to work at a bookstore.
Yeah. Could you guess?
You could tell.
Maybe a little specific.
And our younger audience is going, "What's a bookstore?
What's a bookmark?" You mean a web tab?
That might even be a little old.
Those are called bookmarks still. Yeah, but they got bookmarks. They do the same thing.
They're fair.
Yeah, they're going to return to the page. It's called a page.
Anyway.
Tyrael. Should we move on? Tyrael's so unique. Let's save him for last. Varian is a very interesting case. Not listed as our warriors, but in this post, it says that can we give Unstoppable at level 10 to the charge?
At level 10.
It seems very unrelated because the charge there is associated with cooldowns and ultimately doing like a giant killer build sort of thing, rather than knowing you're going to be parrying non-auto attack damage.
And it's terrifying to give Unstoppable to his other two specs.
Yes, that is true.
That's my biggest, like, what? Do you want to open Pandora's box?
I mean, we could have like the ever-changing text tab. Like sometimes the picture is the same in the WoW talent trees, but they do different things for each spec. We could have that sort of situation happen where charge becomes what each spec would enjoy more. Yeah.
Also, though, like, are we getting too complicated? Are we overcomplicating matters here? Maybe it's something that happens. I hesitate to say this, but at level 4, when you just take taunt, it's like also now charge to give Rance Unstoppable or whatever. We need to tie it into tank spec.
It's interesting because we have Garrosh. I don't want Varian to be able to charge on me without interruption, free of charge, LOL, and get his taunt off. But that's what Garrosh is doing. And Varian can mount too. That's not an exclusive ability to Garrosh.
Yeah. I'm not very passionate about Varian. I can't say I have a lot of opinions here, other than, for the love of God, do not give Unstoppable to anything outside of his tank spec.
It's very tough to get to level 4 with an advantage. It's very difficult in solo queue to pull off a single target pick. Johanna sitting right there, right? ETC hits multiple people as well. There's reasons why those are our top tanks in solo QE random play.
I don't know.
I think it's okay to say that Varian does not get the benefits because he like old druids in WoW. Like they used to just be bad at everything because you were master of none.
He's basic. The word you're looking for is basic. Varian is basic, and so you don't get cool things.
Oh. Oh,
What do you have? So whatever you're doing on Varian, regardless of what spec you're doing, Kyle, how do you mess up? How do you miss?
miss what?
You can't. It's all point and click.
Oh, I see.
He's basic. Like Varian, you know what? I'm going to take a stance here. Varian doesn't get to be a good tank because you don't have to try when you play Varian.
One could say the same thing about Uther.
Yes, but Uther only has 1 point and click. Whoa, never mind. No, he does have two.
Yeah.
No, never mind.
Yeah, Uther's very right clicky. Particularly when we go Holy Shock too, and things get
quite cooldown limited though.
Uther has a very
mana limited.
Uther has a very unique place in a draft. Varian, I feel like, isn't a draft solver like Uther can be.
Also, they've been beating Uther down into the ground slowly.
Yeah.
So he's kind of there, in my opinion.
I'm okay letting Varian be Phil in an ideal super in a super awesome universe where everything is great. I think first pick Varian is an amazing world where he then transforms into what the team needs.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's fine to let Wither as a non-tank because he's got this option to fill if need be.
Yeah. I mean, Charge is fun. It works exactly like it does in World of Warcraft, but maybe we make Charge a skill shot. Like, you actually need to aim the damn thing, and then we can talk.
Stitches.
Sorry, there's a car analogy in the chat. Just made me laugh. Stitches, yeah. So Stitches has recently kind of found new life in a non-tank role. Sadly, it's never in my game. That's always the guy that's like, I'll tank Stitches. And I'm like, no, you're going to do it anyway, aren't you? But that aside, in your games where people know how to play, Kyle, Stitches has found new life.
He's regen based. We don't really have a comparison here. He's picky, like Garrosh might be, but his ability to keep himself alive for very, very long periods of time make him the thing you shouldn't target and the thing that should be avoided and cleansed out of, perhaps in a really sweet, cleansing the hook sort of environment. It'd be really tough to give him either the Mal'Ganis treatment or this. And I think they've already tried. I think that changing his slam to be more universal and more available across his kit is an effort to give him more than one option to impact the enemy team.
I mean, there is also just like, we don't need to make every tank fit into these slots, maybe just more than currently exists. So, because even though Stitches currently, for me, is inhabiting total tilt fuel when I see him drafted in my games, he's very unique. Do we want to lose that in the pursuit of, I don't know, like how much will we have to homogenize him, I guess, is the question I am putting out.
Yeah. I think he is another one that we are going to struggle to adapt to this tank formula. And I really do think he has a very cool place as an off tank. And solo lane can be a place where he can hang out during that time the objective's down. And we're not 5 stacking yet at 20.
I mean, we've discussed really interesting directions for Blaze, Arthas, and Muradin. I think it's okay if we're a little stumped on Varian and Stitches.
Yeah, because we can give him his auto attack heal from 7. We can give him, here it's suggested we give him his fishing hook range, since Stitches are often just sort of clamoring until they get to that level in the first place. At a certain point, you basically make Entomb Leoric, though, who picks one target and doesn't die during it.
Yeah. I mean, should Stitches just be a bruiser? Should we just consider Stitches a bruiser at this point?
I think that'd be very interesting.
I'm okay with it.
I think the health of our tank pool looks worse when we remove people from it, but I would be very comfortable with that assessment. I've seen solo tank Imperious. Granted, it was one guy. Hi Dave, nice playing with you. But Imperious works. Solo tank Imperious absolutely works, and I've seen it multiple times. But I happened to see it twice this week. Some of these bruisers are capable, and I think we can I think we can. I would rather have a main tank Stitches than a main tank Chen, but I'd rather have an Imperious than a Stitches if we're talking bruisers.
Yeah. Well, who'd you rather have in your lane, in your solo lane? Imperious?
Oh, I'm talking about main tanks. Bruisers as main tanks here.
Okay. Gotcha.
That was my hierarchy for who
okay,
can
well,
pull that off.
then all more power to making Stitches a bruiser. It's done. We have 2 votes for yes. Make it so.
We did it. All right, let's come around on
the freedom
Tyrael.
of not actually being developers on the show.
It's perfect. It's perfect. When we can't figure something out, we just go, I don't know. They can figure it out, surely, right? They're the game designers.
Yeah, just make him a bruiser and let's move on.
Yeah,
Tyrael.
that's fine.
Let's talk Tyrael.
Tyrael. One thing put here is giving Holy Ground baseline, because that would give us a Mal'Ganis-like situation. More so based on shields than armor, but we're kind of talked about a new bracket in that way. That would allow multiple of his abilities to pressure the enemy team so that CCing him out, and particularly because that is a rather instant ability like Diablo, maybe more of a Diablo treatment. Tyrael could have a place as a main tank with Holy Ground at 1.
Did I glaze over while reading the original post? Was this a suggestion by the Redditor who wrote this, Frozen Death Knight?
Yes.
I like this one.
I'm traumatized by some boss steals.
Yeah.
With the Holy Ground.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that, Face Melt hasn't come in and stolen the boss.
True.
It's just, there's nothing Face Melt, it's like, I shouldn't have been in range, or we should have stopped him, whereas Tyrael was hiding behind a bush and the sword was perfectly in the middle, and feels like there's nothing you can do in that situation.
Yeah, I don't know how you would tune that. I guess you could slightly reduce the area, right?
I mean, we'll think about Power Slide, right? Like, Tyrael right now has a lot of talents that can empower Eldrune, off the top of my head. His fast sword name? Eldruin. He has a lot of talents that can empower his Q. Mm-hmm. We would remove those, just like we don't spend a whole bunch of talents empowering Power Slide.
Another tank I don't personally have a lot of stake in, so
it's a dream tank, I think, is where I butt heads with it often. You'll see, right now the popularity of Bloodlust with Earthquake and Hyperion and Mosh Pit, and everyone's like, oh man, you should have gone Sanctification. And you're like, well, yeah, in some perfect universe where we all stand in it. But that's not what happens.
Yeah.
It's hard enough to just get your one gray main friend to stand in it. It's a tough sell.
Yeah. Coordinate environment, right? Is that where we just fly the coordinate environment flag and move on?
Exactly. Which honestly feels like a personality trait. Like, you can't lead a heroes player to water and make them hit their R button on time. It just, I've trained, I've played with a lot of players, and Entomb Blizzard, it's not that easy. That Blizzard may have been used 8 seconds ago to clear a lane, and that communication wasn't there, or my pings for, it's really hard to land this, to put these things together, surprisingly, when you get into the moment.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. To me, it's like I don't know. I'd almost look at Tyrael as a potential rework, but again, it's a hero that has a very passionate player base, right?
Right, and kind of like the Stitches chance of the Sweet Hook. I think there's a healthy place for Tyrael where people feel like he could have worked, or he's going to work, and that feels empowering. That feels good as a video game feature.
Yeah, I think it's just, I don't know. To me, I look at his base kit and I just go, I don't think it does enough.
And that's why I think Holy Ground might be this Mal'Ganis treatment that he might need. Just another piece of pressure like our Muradin equation to make sure that he is participating on a tank level for the whole game.
Right. But does it have to be that specifically, or can you look at like adding, like, is there somewhere we can actually get a stun into his base kit instead of just middling slows that you don't really notice?
Yeah, we've got
Eldruin's Might is a 25% slow. Smite is a 25% increased movement speed for your allies. Like, are we excited about that?
I'm not anymore. I used to be really down on anything below 25%, but I'm also, a dirty URL player right now. So anything below 50%, I'm like, nah, hard sell. I pass.
Yeah.
And we're looking at, Smite, 25% movement increase. Like, that's maybe, what if we just took that 25% of Smite, put it on Righteousness? So we've got shields for yourself and your allies equal to 40% as much.
And then what, like a slow aura?
No, like well, that'd be kind of cute. It'd be very kind of paladin-y to give him a slow order sort of business. But I'm thinking Righteousness, when you get a shield, you get movement speed because you're going to cast both at the same time anyway, and he's going to run out of mana. So let's make that investment. And what if Smite has a mini root or a slow? I'm pretty sure one of these talents gives a
Might
slow.
already has a slow. It's just a 25% slow.
I only see a 25% movement speed increase.
Am I looking at old stuff? Yeah, his Q has a slow.
Oh, sorry. I'm talking about Smite, not Eldruin's Might.
Okay, I'm just talking about the kit as a whole. That was where the disconnect was.
Yeah, so let's give Smite a slow because it deals damage. Yet we use it as a Mario Kart pad. I think we could turn this, like, really flip this around and make a tank out of this. We might get rid of the slow, give it the Holy Ground, and maybe we take that to 16 seconds like a Blizzard.
I'm still afraid of Holy Ground, so I'm like, can we just put a stun on Eldruin's Might? not a you can't walk here.
You know what? I mean, okay, Holy Ground. How long does Holy Ground last right now? It lasts for, I guess as long as so 2.5 seconds. Okay. Yeah, I think we can take it down out of 2.5 seconds if we're going to make a unblockable terrain area.
It's mildly terrifying.
Yeah.
This is your fault. You were the one that brought up boss deals. And I'm like, oh, crap, I don't want to live in this world.
Yeah, let's just do a second there. I mean, you're saying that you might be cool with a Eldruin's Might gets thrown, and in that circle, if you teleport there, everyone's stunned in that area.
Yeah, why not? It's a pretty small area.
That sounds really cool. That sounds super duper cool,
doesn't it? I mean, it's something you can tweak. I mean, you can tweak the duration of Holy Ground, but do you want to? I don't know. I'm just throwing out alternate possibilities, and we've gotten pretty cute on a lot of the heroes we've talked about. So I'm here with, like, let's make this simpler. A root or a stun on Eldruin's Might. Why are we getting weird?
I think it'd be really cool to get weird with a fear associated with that.
Well, like you've been judged and you're fleeing for justice?
Yeah.
You're just overcome by the sense of justice.
I mean, exactly. I mean, granted, I don't expect them to go through all the characters. We have stun animations. Fear isn't, like, unique. I love, it was Horrify in World of Warcraft where you cower instead of just run.
Like, that would be interesting. That'd be interesting.
I'm not going to ask them to go make that animation for all their characters. That's insane. But I love that differentiation between a stun and a Horrify in World of Warcraft. I think it'd be very cool if they were feared even minorly in a direction. It would basically be a face melt, but you're technically under the effects of a Horrify or a horror.
I mean, if they're standing still, it's basically a stun, so you might as well just make it a stun.
Might as well.
Yeah.
But thematically, I love the idea of Tyrael ending up on the field and everyone's like, oh my goodness, that is too much good. I can't can you handle this? No, man, I send once. Like, I'm out.
I stole a pack of gum when I was 5.
Dude, it's chapsticks. Where are mine?
We get all the voice actors back into the studio to record sin lines, like admission of sins. From
they all whisper. Well, we'll just do. The voice actors are expensive. Let's do it with text. You get a whisper from the player. That is like a little secret.
Good Lord.
I'll message you. I accidentally took caltrops. You're like, oh shit, fellas. It's Battlefield of Eternity. How can you do this to us?
Deckard Cain apologizes for killing so many trees for all of his scrolls.
Yeah,
His scrolls actually are usually cloth, but
it could be a reed or something like that, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I polluted the wastes of Chaldeum with my random bullshit.
My ink isn't all natural. Thank you, Deckard. Thank you. You died to a butterfly. It's okay.
So wonderful. So wonderful. All right. So that's everyone, right? Tyrael was the last tank. We had
those are the big ones. We could talk, of course, like I said, bringing bruisers up to the tank role, but I think that's way more complicated. And they intended originally some of our bruisers to be tanks, and we didn't agree.
Yeah. It's fine. It's fine. So this is really interesting. Let us know what you think, folks. I have a feeling we'll get some feedback on this one. Write in itncast@gmail.com. You can tweet at us at itncast. And if you're a patron, you can just message us in the Discord. Skip the inbox entirely. So check it out. I've been really getting tweets from
Chosen there. Like, no, we're not talking about Cho'Gall.
Nope. No. It is its own can of two-headed worms. All right. Cho'Gall works fine in the very strange way and reality that Cho'Gall works.
It's like most of us bake brownies and your friend knows how to make souffles. Like, who cares? Like, let them do their thing. I'll keep eating brownies.
Hey, you want to play some beer pong? Oh, I did it this one time. You put it in the pool and then you use 7 cups or I think actually how many cups are in beer? I don't know. But people who have really dumb drinking game rules, I'm like, can we just do the thing the way we all understand it's done and have a good time? Thank you. Cool.
Right.
But
I mean, before we end, I do think it's interesting that we did get a email this week about anti-magic shell becoming an anti-magic zone. And that's one we've talked about a lot. That just feels undertuned for level 20 powers.
That was from Balcomur, right?
Yeah.
So this is being the 20 on Arthas.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't like it. And wouldn't the zone be worse? I mean, there would be you have your Tyrael issue where I should have wanted sanctify. It's like, yeah, if you have buttholes stood in it.
Well, interesting. The butthole standing is often forced in this case because anti-magic shell is usually like an emergency pick into Kel'Thuzad. So I really like this idea in that you and your fellow Kel'Thuzad chain buddy could be protected to some degree.
Thematically, Arthas doesn't give a shit about you.
Nah, that's true. That's, actually, do any of his abilities have friendship in them? Not really.
I mean, you definitely benefit from Syndragosa.
Sure, but you benefit from a root, but Arthas is still charging forward, right?
Right.
Into the fray on Arthas would be really weird. Into the fray because Gary's a huge, it makes sense.
You didn't want to say dick?
I didn't want to say that.
Okay, fair. Just
I've already been mean enough to Gary players. I'm sure there's really nice ones out there who this is just where they let loose.
Listen, I get it, Gary players. You like 5-finger death punch. It's okay. I mean, it's interesting for sure. It's more interesting than anti-magic shell. I'll give you that. But I mean, it's better for the niche scenario where you would already be taking anti-magic shell. So sure. This is just I just find it to be such a boring level 20.
It'd be weird to, I think the idea is really cool. It's weird to empower an ability that feels like you're making up for a bad draft in the first place. But we also have limited picks for Arthas, so maybe he ends up in those situations more often than we're thinking.
Yeah, I'm still kind of the mind that Arthas's level 20s are some of the most mundane in the entire game.
I think Absolute Zero is great. Rootin', slowing, Syndragosa business.
There's no cooldown reduction. I'm not interested.
I mean, if we want to talk level 20 heroics and how they're not balanced, we can just go take a look at Leoric real quick.
All right. Absolute Zero is the most interesting talent. So congratulations. You picked the one decent one. But like, oh, dude, think about some of the 20s we have in this game now.
Dude, can I talk about Death March for a hot moment? I've been given permission by silence. March of the Black King Leoric.
Okay.
You become unstoppable, walk forward, swing in your mace 3 times. Enemies are hit, you heal for 12% of your max health.
Yep.
At level 20, the final swing of March applies Drain Hope to all nearby heroes. This is basically your Drain Hope range. It is not associated with hitting the final swing. You do not have to hit your swing on March of the Black King in order to apply a Drain Hope to everybody, and it uses talents. That's like the 10% bonus damage Crushing Hope. That's like Unyielding Despair. It applies straight up Drain Hope to all targets in a circular area around you.
Meanwhile, Arthas, I can move a little faster.
You might get him.
Meanwhile, Arthas, I can take 25% of the damage taken for 4 seconds.
Meanwhile,
by the way, spell damage
you
only.
might activate Shield Defensive Angels to gain 50 armor, which Mal'Ganis can do at level 4. Of course, as we've said all show, it's not a
yeah.
It's
Meanwhile,
not perfectly...
Arthas, I get 3 more ghouls.
Yeah, woohoo! Of course, as you said, I'll show that it's not an asymmetrical game, right? Or it is an asymmetrical.
Yes. Yeah. No, this isn't talking about no. I'm not trying to homogenize here. I'm just trying to make sure the awesome is equally spread.
Right.
All right.
Well, we'll end the show.
Yes.
That's not salt. That is. I'm going to argue with the chat real quick. That's not salt. That's the essence of discovery. That is exciting. What do you think I'm like? What do you think I'm going to do? Not go do that myself now?
Chat room. Kyle has his own dictionary, and that is his definition of salt. He's just unaware of it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Actually, that might be true. My counter salt is that I get excited because I might go do the salty thing now that I was exposed to in video games. Not gonna like go be bad to people because I was bad on. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Positive way to use salt. Use salt to fuel you to learn new horrible things to invoke upon your enemies.
Exactly. I'm fueled by salt.
Yeah. It's wonderful. That would be Kyle's sin. He would admit the material, by the way. I was salty once.
I'm so sorry. I stunned for 1 second.
All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Again, let us know what you think. Write in itncast@gmail.com or drop us a message on the Patreon Discord. Speaking of our badass patrons, thank you so much for supporting us. If you like this here program, you want to support us making the best damn Heroes of the Storm program out there, head on over to patreon.com/ITN. Also, a huge thanks to our producers. Guys, you're the best. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you, Declan H., Cheesy Bob, Chris K., Mike C., and Eric C. We really appreciate it. You can catch us live usually on Thursdays around 3 p.m. Eastern Time over at twitch.tv/amovetv. Come join our lovely chat room and make us giggle, make us laugh, sometimes pose poignant questions, and also help us figure out the names of things that we forget and can't Google fast enough. That's like, oh, thank you, chat room. Thank you so much. Other than that, Kyle, you do so many other things around the webosphere than just Into the Nexus. Where can everyone find the lovely LB content you're pumping out?
Oh, of course, you can find tons of Heroes content across the web over at Heroes Hearth, at twitch.tv/Kyle Fergusson, at youtube.com/Kyle Fergusson. But I also love Dungeons and Dragons, and you should check out season 5 of DM Gives Inspiration, wherever podcasts can be found. This last week was about running your quest NPCs better, and I stole a little terminology from our guest AZ Jackson about the emotional bank account you use as DM.
Ooh, nice. Go check that out, everybody. I am over at amove.tv. This podcast and every single other one that I produce can be found over at amove.tv. Check out The Angry Chicken for Hearthstone. Check out Let's Talk About Star Wars for, you guessed it. And check out WoW Killer for World of Warcraft. Had a nice long chat with Taliesin this past week about BlizzCon's cancellation. Which, oh my god, we didn't talk about BlizzCon's cancellation, but probably because I literally talked about it every single day, multiple times this week already.
Can we, let's be real. It's a Heroes of the Storm show, man.
It had to happen. It had to happen. Hey, we had a panel last year. We had Deathwing last year, man. Like, I mean, they announced it before the con and like totally ruined what would have been an amazing reveal at BlizzCon itself. Heroes reveals go over well. Do you remember Alex Strauss? Like, frankly, like, all right, Alex Strauss does well, right? Okay, but not that cool of a hero in Heroes of the Storm. People lost their shit for the Alex Strauss announcement.
I'm just saying, like, we get like 2 dev guests at once, and then we play some games after. Like, we just made our own Heroes of the Storm BlizzCon, right? Like, that's what I'm saying. Is the ability to replace BlizzCon as a Heroes of the Storm show is much easier than other titles.
We should see if we can do like a dev roundtable. Like, I want as many devs from the team as we can get together.
Mm-hmm.
And we can do it whenever. You know what? Doesn't have to be in November.
No, but we can release in November because people will look for it.
Well, no, because I would hope that the interview would be extremely timely information, and I would definitely not want to record it 3 months in advance.
Well, that's true. We're going to make our own BlizzCon is what I'm saying.
Yes. Also, there's no way it could have happened.
No, yes, the reality of the situation is yes. Of course.
Absolutely. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up for this episode, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you next week, but until then, good luck and have fun.
Take care.